Hi YouTube, I'm Debs and this is Raina Read Stuff, and today I am going to talk to you about the second week of Garbaugust. I hope you've had a better week than I have because mine's been a disaster. Last weekend I started feeling an abscess in my face, went to the dentist Monday to try and get some antibiotics. He said no, he did nothing, he charged me for the privilege, the abscess burst overnight. Lots of pain, very disgusting. Yesterday, I go off to try and see my family down south. 150 miles. We do 90 of the miles. The car breaks down. We have to call the RAC and get towed home. This is about 10:30 in the morning. We get home at 11 o'clock at night. It's been one of those weeks. So the week's been trash. However, the Garbaugust has been trashier and it's been really good fun. So let us start on week 2 of Garbaugust. Now, you can see I've been organised. This week's prompts: paperbacks from hell or vintage smut. So, paperbacks from hell. The Rats by James Herbert. I don't think I have read this since I was in my teens. I loved it at the time. I loved it again. The cinema scene in here will forever haunt me. It's not very big. Didn't take very long. I might have to get some more James Herbert though, because I really enjoyed this, and it's just good fun. Good fun. Vintage Smart. I was going to use this for the nudity on the cover, but actually I found something with boobs and nipples, so I'm going to go with that instead. So I'm using this for the Vintage Smut. Anais Nin, Little Birds. I think it wasn't her first book of erotica. It may well have been her second. It's a series of 13 vignettes about lust, desire, sexuality. The first of them, which is the title story, which you can't see because I've got the light wrong, there you go, is a bit too much. A guy buys a flat overlooking a girls' school with the intention of grooming the young girls that attend the school. A little bit close to the knuckle, I think, for these times. Um, the rest of them is really vintage erotica, and Nin writes very well. Um, she deals with um, single sex as well as male female hookups, I think, rather than romances. And I mean, it's about people's sexual needs and desires and how they fulfill those. And with the exception of the first story, I did enjoy these. I've read some Anais Nin before. I haven't got the first book. What's it called? Delta of Venus. There you go. She explores the nature of female sexuality in that one. But I think it ticks the vintage smut book. So, green pen in hand. Paperbacks from Hell. Paperbacks from Hell is done. Vintage smut also done. Then I moved on to my bingo card. And if you watched the first video I did, or it might have been the one before that, I'm trying to cross all of these off using different books for each. I don't want to duplicate the categories. I think this was my biggest disappointment in the week. Jackie Collins, The World is Full of Married Men. Now, I had to go out and specially buy a Jackie Collins from a second-hand bookshop. There were loads of them. I chose this one purely because it was the thinnest. I have read Jackie Collins before years ago. I don't really enjoy it, so I thought I would torture myself for the least amount of time possible. I hadn't read this one. I don't object per se to books like this. It's just these ones, all the characters are vacuous. I mean, there's just no one you can like in maybe one character. Everybody's having affairs with everybody else, which you expect from this sort of thing. But they're just not nice people. And you don't want to like them. You don't feel anything but yeah for them, really. So I finished it. I won't be reading it again. It's very likely to be going back to the second-hand bookshop from whence it came. It does mean I can tick off a box, and that box is Jackie Collins' book, ticked off. I moved on to something really good after that. I know this isn't trash, but it is Killer Kids. And when I did my first video and questioned whether or not I could use this for Killer Kids, none other than Olly himself said yes, I could. So that's good enough for me. The Midwich Cuckoos, John Wyndham. I love John Wyndham. I read his books often. I think my favourite is The Chrysalids. This I haven't read for quite a long time. It's really good. Um, it's quite twisty. It's so if you haven't read it and you haven't seen the film, which was called The Village of the Damned, a village in the English countryside, quite a small village, gets locked down one night. No one can get into it or out of it without collapsing in a heap on the floor. Overnight, the various authorities are trying to gain access to this village, and they can see that there is some sort of craft there. In this village is a government testing facility, and then it's got your normal cottages, a shop, a pub, and a church, and there's a manor there as well. But for a quite a considerable area, no one can get in and out of this village for 24 hours. When finally everybody comes back to life and they are not affected at all by the fact that they've been knocked out by some sort of gas stuff. A little bit later on, they find out that all the women of conceiving age and ability in the village are pregnant. And they all give birth to children who look extremely alike. They've all got blonde hair, they've all got golden eyes, and they are obviously linked. So it's the story of how the village and how the government organisations cope with these children and how the children cope with the rest of the world. Um, it's quite spooky in places. Um, it's a really interesting read. I will definitely be keeping it. I had it already, and I'll definitely be reading it again at some point. Killer Children, ticked off. So, next on the list was a sexy vamp book. Again, not really my scene. This, Vampires for Christmas, because that's what everybody has at the top of their Christmas list. It contains 4 books. I read Enchanted by Blood by Laurie London. It was quite good fun. I didn't object to it. The concept was there are vampires in the world who are trying to keep themselves hidden, and our hero in this story is a guy called Trace, and he is waiting to be elected to like a council of elders in his as a replacement for his father who's died. Now, Trace has previously had a relationship with a woman called Charlotte who is human. And when Charlotte, who he hadn't told was a vampire, discovered at a party Trace's cousin sucking the blood out of somebody, Trace felt he had no choice but to erase her memory. They meet up again. She's in a dangerous situation. He rescues her. They start going through the motions of starting a relationship again, and this is about how he copes with that, and how that affects his position on the Council of Elders that is quite opposed to human vampire relationships. It was a bit of fun. I'll probably read the other three in here, but after that, I doubt very much whether I'll keep it. Kicks off the sexy vamp book, though. Look at that. Right. Conspiracy Theories by Robin Ramsey. 4, obviously, book about conspiracy theory. This is less about a particular conspiracy theory, but more about the theories of conspiracy theories. So, what he's doing is looking at why conspiracy theories are either believed or not believed. I think his particular interest is the assassination of JFK. And he claims to have done a lot of reading and research on it. Every chapter in this book includes notes of where he's found his information and where you can also access it. I don't know whether you'd still be able to, because the book was written, she says, desperately turning the pages to find out when it was written. It was written in 2006, so things may have changed slightly in the intervening, 17 years. Wow. Wow, 17 years ago. It was quite interesting. I didn't feel completely convinced by his arguments, although I can see his point that there are obviously conspiracy theories that are just ridiculous, and there's always going to be some sort of conspiracy in our social lives or political situations, or they happen and they're going to happen. So I think really what he was saying was this with this book is, yes, some conspiracy theories are ludicrous, but don't dismiss all of them. It was okay, but it does mean another square on the box. Book based on a video game. I've never read a book based on a video game, but I am a minor gamer. There are some games I like. We have a very nice Xbox, and I do play games on that. one of my favourite games, my favourite franchise of games is Assassin's Creed. So I thought, well, why not read Assassin's Creed Renaissance? Another charity shop bargain. For anyone who's played Assassin's Creed, this is based on number 2 in the games. We have Ezio, who is the son of a banker in Florence. And we are talking, oh, when are we talking? 1400s, 1450s. We're in Renaissance Italy. This book of the game is exactly that. It's a book exactly of the game, which is fine-ish, but it goes through, and at the beginning, for anyone who has played video games, at the beginning of games you normally get training missions or tutorials that show you how to operate the controls and what the character you are playing can do. This even includes those, which is okay if you're playing the game, but it's a bit damn dull when you're reading it in a book. For example, in Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio has to learn to climb walls and run over rooftops and jump. And as much description of him doing that is put into the beginning of this as it is in the game, and it's just a bit boring. The rest of the story does get a bit more of a gallop on, and I knew the story because I think maybe 30 or 40 pages into the book it was quite obvious that this book was just going to exactly copy the game. But it was quite a fun read. I don't think I'll be keeping that one either. However, I now, for the first time ever, have read a book based on a video game. There's another box crossed off. We're still going. This one, Robin the Hoodie, an Asbo history of Britain, by someone claiming to be called Hans Christian Asbosen. I think I could probably have used this one for the Moral Panic, but I am using it for the book published under a pseudonym because I am willing to put money on the fact that the author isn't really called Hans Christian Asbosen. This is actually it. I enjoyed this. It was good fun. I found it kicking around in a second-hand shop, and as I've mentioned before, I live in Nottingham, home of Robin Hood. Seemed like a good book to get. Didn't seem to take itself too seriously. Looked a bit trashy, and I was right, it was. We have a number of short stories where the historical character is transformed into someone who deserves an ASBO, basically. We start with Boadicea, as it says in here. We go through the Black Prince, the Peasants' Revolt, Dick Whittington, Sir Walter Raleigh. There's loads of them. We end the last few, William Webb Ellis and the invention of rugby, Stevenson's rocket, Charles Dickens and Jamie Oliver Twist, and the Charge of the Light Brigade. There's lots in here, and it's really quite amusing. I did enjoy reading this. There was a bit in here. Where's the Henry VIII chapter? Where they changed the words of Greensleeves slightly. So it reads, Alas, my love, my eyes are red. That bong of skunk has done for me. Now I must stagger off to bed, or I will vomit ferociously. Very Tudor Court. It was really funny. I enjoyed it. And Hans Christian Asbosen isn't a real name. Therefore, this is published under a pseudonym. So that's not a bad start for week 2. However, we can do better than that. I finished Riders. Look at the size of it. It's a doorstop. There's more than 900 pages in this book. And I got about a third of the way through by the end of last week. I said I was going to read a couple of hundred pages a week. In the end, I couldn't resist finishing it. Now, unlike Jackie Collins, the characters in this book, at least some of them, are likable. You can get involved with them. You can hope that they are going to do well in life and love and everything else. It's a bit smutty. It's not too smutty. Um, it's not like Anais Nin or whatever I read for that thing that I read for the dirty book last week. Unbelievable. Not like that. I mean, there's sex in it. No one is faithful to anybody. Um, it's based around the show jumping circuits and takes you to different places in the world. It mainly involves people who are uh, trying to either represent England, or there are lesser characters who represent other countries on the show jumping circuit. And it's about their attempts to get to the Olympics. It features 2 Olympic Games. It culminates in Los Angeles with the 1984 Olympic Games. We concentrate mainly on the British team and their wives, partners, lovers, hangers on. Um, but we also have American characters, German characters, French characters, Italian characters. It's all a bit of fun, really, and it's quite a good romp through this world. I have read it before. It is trashy. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Probably will be tempted if I see it to get Rivals as well. This this copy I'm going to dump. I mean, I bought it. It's the worst. Look, it's hideously battered. So, but if I find another one, I'd probably buy it and I'd probably keep it. Jilly Cooper is ticked off. And we're still not over, because the group read was a book that Pax read last year, and it was The Devil's Laughter was selected. I read the last, it's split into 2 books. One's got 20 chapters, one's got 18 chapters. I read the first 20 chapters last week. I finished it this week. I know, having already seen Criminoli's wrap-up video for week 2, that he didn't like it. I loved it. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever read. Well, almost the most ridiculous thing I'd ever read. It's violent. It mixes up so many things. So you've got haunted houses. You've got a hero who really doesn't like people. You can probably count on one hand the people that he likes. The rest of them he would pretty much like to shoot. He loves animals, and he will shoot anyone who harms his animals. Um, he has an enormous arsenal. Don't know why. Um, he sets bombs. We have Satanists. lots of Satanists, most of whom he kills single-handedly, mainly. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous, and because of that, it was really good fun, and I enjoyed it. I don't think it has any literary merit to it whatsoever, um, but I really enjoyed reading it. I am crossing off the read along. So, two of the prompts ticked off. I now have 4, 6, 7, 10, 14 of the 25 bingo card slots ticked off, and I've read the read along. This coming week is novelizations or books by famous people. For novelizations, I've got The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and a book by Alan Titchmarsh, celebrity gardener, called Rosie. I'm looking forward more to that one than I am to that one. But I might be proved wrong, who knows. Happy end of week 2 for Garbaugust. I hope your week generally went better than mine did. Thank you for stopping by and watching. If you'd like to like the video or subscribe, it would be lovely, lovely to speak to you. Let me know what you've been reading. Thanks to Olly at Olly, for the Garbaugust tag, which I am thoroughly enjoying. And I shall speak to you soon. Thanks for popping by.